In today's episode, we revisit a legendary coaster reborn and why its return has stirred both nostalgia and controversy. Welcome to Airtime Traveler. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You are listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and as always, I'm joined by my wife and lovely co-host.
Hey, I'm Haley Grace.
And thank you for tuning in to this week's episode.
Yay.
Episode 2 of Season 4. And thank you for the, as always, the positive feedback and response to the beginning of a new season. So it always seems like every time we start a new season, like the people tune in, we have even more people tune in than the years before.
That's
and
true. I'm excited.
We had just in these past 2 weeks compared to the first episode of last season, we had it was almost double the amount of listeners.
That's so crazy.
For our Fury 325 episode as opposed to our Lightning Rod episode, just in those 2 weeks between episodes. So
that's insane.
So really appreciate all your support and everybody for tuning into beginning of season 4. So
yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, it's like exciting. Like I know for me, like when we first started this, I was doing it more to like support your hobby and like support your passion and things like that. But now that it's been 4 seasons and we've had more and more listeners, like it's been awesome to see it grow and turn into something that I love doing with you too.
Yeah,
so,
it's been good. So.
Yeah, high five.
Yay! Well, if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, first of all, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Here at Airtime Traveler, we talk about roller coaster history, as you probably gathered by this point. But rather than do the history of the roller coaster in general, we like to take one roller coaster in each episode and do a deep dive into the history of that coaster. And I'm a roller coaster enthusiast and have been for a while now, and my wife Haley is a member of the GP, or the general public.
That's right.
I'm here to do the research and to tell the stories, and she's here to listen and to make me more interesting. And that's how it goes here. So,
yep.
And I think it works pretty well.
I hope so.
Clearly, the all of you that have tuned in to double our listenership year over year feel the same way. Either that, or you're just here to listen to the train wreck, which we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know one way or the other. So. Another thing I just wanted to shout out real quick. If you missed it, we did something kind of different that you probably saw it posted earlier this week. We recorded a beginner's guide to being a roller coaster enthusiast. And so we kind of felt like it was a way for people that wanted to listen to the podcast, but maybe aren't super familiar with the industry, or maybe you're just now getting into being a coaster enthusiast. Mm-hmm. Whatever it might be, it was kind of a way for us to record a beginner's guide to like give you information about the history of the amusement industry, or different roller coaster manufacturers, or different terms that coaster enthusiasts are familiar with. Just little things that might help you as you're listening to our podcast, or if you want to kind of get into this hobby, things that can kind of give you a head start into the coaster enthusiast community and the coaster enthusiast hobby. So,
yep.
So if you want to check that out, be sure and go and listen to that. It was quite long, but I think there's a lot of useful information in there, and you can always skip ahead, through the parts that you already know about or whatever. So
true.
So go check that out.
Technology is the skip button.
I know.
I use the skip button a lot.
Especially when there's ads.
Good old ads.
All right. Well, why don't we just jump right into our topic for today's episode?
All right.
So we are going back to Worlds of Fun for today's episode.
Okay.
And hasn't been too long since we talked about Worlds of Fun roller coaster. We did 2 Worlds of Fun episodes last season. We did a Timberwolf during the summer. We did the Timberwolf episode. And then our Halloween special, we actually went back to Worlds of Fun to talk about Orient Express, which we specifically chose to do that as our Halloween special because we got to do a backstage tour of Orient.
So cool.
The Orient Express's old station and some of the old tunnel that it used to go through. And so because we kind of got a little bit of hands-on stuff there, we wanted to talk about Orient Express. But this is an episode that I've kind of had in my back pocket for a while now because this is a coaster that just opened pretty recently, but also has a fascinating history behind it. We are talking about Zambezi Zinger today.
Oh, okay.
So another coaster that we've had a little bit of behind the scenes information on, or not information, but like we got to do
back behind the scenes.
Yeah, got to do a backstage tour of Zambezi Zinger as well. So Zambezi Zinger opened in 2023 at Worlds of Fun. The cost has never been published, but a lot of people in the industry kind of estimate it at about $10 million. It's not a super big coaster, so not super expensive, relatively speaking, obviously.
Right.
2,428 feet long, 74 feet tall, and a top speed of 45 miles per hour. Average 2024 wait time is 34 minutes, which honestly less than I would have guessed because every time we've been to the park since Zambezi Zinger opened, the wait times have always been 90 minutes plus. So
yeah,
but it's probably less. We're typically there on weekends, so I'm sure it's probably not that bad during the week. In the CoasterBot rankings, it ranks at number 149 in the country, which if you listen to our CoasterBot preview, or CoasterBot rankings review, you will know that that's 50 spots lower than it was last year. So big drop, year over year for Zambezi Zinger in the CoasterBot rankings.
Yeah.
So now it ranks below coasters such as Excalibur at Funtown Splashtown USA, Apocalypse at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and Wooden Warrior at Quasi Amusement Park. Ranks above coasters such as Thunderbolt at Kennywood, Mind Blower at Fun Spot Kissimmee, and Timber Terror at Silverwood. At Worlds of Fun, it ranks number 3, and it's kind of a noticeable drop-off. Prowler and Mamba are comfortably inside the top 100. And then Zambezi Zinger is at number 149, just ahead of Patriot, which comes in at number 4. I think Patriot's like 150 something. So they're pretty much neck and neck. And then the rest, so those are like the 4 big coasters at the park. Timberwolf also comes in at, I don't know exactly where Timberwolf comes in the rankings, but Timberwolf is kind of hit and miss for some people. And then you have the kind of the smaller coasters, Spinning Dragons at 6, Boomerang at 7, and Cosmic Coaster at number 8. That's the little kitty coaster there, the Snoopy. It's not Cosmic Coaster. It's not. Oh gosh, it's not Camp Snoopy. It's a Planet Snoopy. That must be what it is. It must be Planet like Snoopy at Worlds of Fun. So, review of the name. I think Zambezi Zinger is a really good name for a coaster. I think coasters that have alliterative names. I think that's always very catchy to have a coaster with two word coaster that's alliterative. So
I like the term zinger too. Like I just I don't know. I just think it's a good phrase to use for a coaster. So
yeah, it's a very good name. Fits very well thematically in that section of the park. So it's a good name.
Yeah.
The logo is also very good. We've talked about it many times. The Cedar Fair logo designers, they do good.
They
really good job over
really,
there.
Really
so, but this is a very nice, refreshed logo because this isn't the logo of the original one. Spoiler alerts, but
see, I'm the one that usually spoils everything. It's your turn to spoil some stuff.
I know. So it's the only reason we're able to actually do a full episode about a coaster that was built 2 years ago is because there's actually a lot of history behind why it's there. So, Reviewed the paint scheme and the trains. It's a wooden coaster, so paint scheme, not much to say about it.
Right.
I will say the trains, I really like the design of the trains.
Yeah, I remember you talking about the trains when we like went and rode it. You're like, oh, the trains look really nice. So.
Yeah, they're definitely the GCI's Infinity Flyers definitely have an open feel. So there's not like a whole lot they can do with the design of the actual train.
Right.
But they did make an emphasis to work on the front of the car, the front of the train, and design it to look like an off-roading Jeep, even with like the little bumper on the front, and then they cut the grill, the little holes in the grill to look like a Jeep. And so I do appreciate the attention to detail on the front car, at least. So even though there's not much they could do with the rest of the train, I think it looks really good. Here's the park's description of the ride. As guests travel through Africa, south of the Serengeti, they arrive at a small-time safari company, offering exciting tours to adventurers and thrill seekers who have traveled from near and far to experience the Zinger. Zambezi Adventure Safaris went out of business just before the turn of the century, when the Zinger was thought to have gone extinct. They recently reopened their doors after new evidence suggested the Zinger had returned to the area. There you go.
I feel like you definitely need like some
jungle
creepy
music.
Jungle music.
But instead of the hardcore trailer music, like action movie trailer music we usually have behind that part.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to find some jungle music and put behind that. So.
I like it. I think you should.
Customer reviews.
All right.
I will say, so there's not a lot of reviews on Google because it's a pretty new coaster. I do have a spot in here for us to talk about our experience with Zambezi Zinger later in the episode.
Then.
But I will say it has a 3.7 out of 5 on Google reviews right now, which is not great.
No.
That's not great. I'm pretty sure that's the second lowest we've had. The lowest being Dart Coaster at Busch Gardens, which I still don't. That doesn't make sense to me. But there are still some 5-star reviews here. 5 stars. Beware, it's super fast, bumpy, and scary. Nothing like the original Zinger, don't get me wrong. It's an amazing experience. This ride is by far the fastest ride I've been on at Worlds of Fun, which means that he's been on like nothing, by the way, because it's like it's like
Mamba and Prowler are much faster.
Prowler, Mamba, Patriot, and Timberwolf are faster than it. So there's only one restraint, a metal T-bar across your lap, so it literally feels like you're flying through the air. If you love fast and no brakes, try riding the Zambezi Zinger at Worlds of Fun in Kansas City, Missouri. Sounds like an advertisement.
I was going to say, it sounds like he was paid to write this.
It does have 349 reviews. That's a lot.
Someone paid him to write all those reviews.
There's another 5 stars. Really bumpy, fast and thrilling. I had a fast pass because of the insane lines, but still the ride was one of the best things in the entire park. Okay.
We don't.
Short and sweet.
The line wait, because we didn't have to wait for our lines.
Yeah, because we were there for an ACE event, and we got front of the line at the beginning of the day and ERT at the end of the day. So that was pretty sweet.
Yep.
A great addition to the roller coaster lineup at Worlds of Fun, Zambezi Zinger is a fast-paced, low-to-the-ground hybrid coaster that is intense from first drop to the very end. I would say the only negative is the length of this ride, as it definitely could have been longer. Overall, though, backseat is where it's at for intensity on this ride. That definitely sounds like a coaster enthusiast.
That sounds like a major coaster enthusiast. GP would not ride that. So.
Did you? I don't think you did back row with me.
No.
Back row was insane. We'll talk about it later, but here's a weird one. 5 stars. A cross between Prowler and Powder Keg at Silver Dollar City. I can't think of one thing about Zambezi Zinger and Powder Keg that are the same.
The middle child of the two. What?
Prowler makes sense because they're both wooden coasters, but Powder Keg? Why Powder Keg?
I don't get that one.
Not only is it a steel coaster, it's a launch coaster. None of that makes sense. The middle child of the two, wild ride with plenty of G-forces. I mean, the last sentence makes sense, but I don't understand the Powder Keg. I don't get it.
I need an explanation.
Here's 3 stars. The design is great. It feels faster than it is. There are plenty of steep banks and turns. The only downside is the shakiness. I've never been on a new coaster with such a rough ride.
Yep.
Feels like the Timberwolf after 20 years. I can't imagine what this thing will feel like as it ages.
Amen. That's a very accurate description.
That's an accurate description. 1 star, the ride was too shaky, too loud, the turns were way too sharp, there was almost no legroom, and the restraints were too tight. Wow. I don't think this person liked anything about the coaster. If I were to compare it to another ride, it would be a worse version of the Timberwolf. I guess Boomerang can feel better about now being the second worst ride behind Zambezi Zinger. Unless you're a fighter jet pilot, you will not enjoy this ride. I don't know what that means.
Fighter jet pilot.
1 star, the restraint clamps down on you. It hurts like crap and ride not smooth, even though in a new ride. Okay. So a general consensus of like it's not smooth, even though it's new.
Yeah.
And very last one here. 3 stars. I saw an 80-year-old woman ride this today. If you're 80 years old, you will enjoy.
What?
Let's not make that a generalization because
no.
just because one 80-year-old woman rode it does not mean we should be putting all 80-year-olds on this ride.
I'm like actually very concerned about that woman's health. Like very concerned.
Isn't that crazy? Can you imagine putting any of our grandparents on that ride?
It'd be like my Grandma Jackson
my God.
riding it. She would totally do it too, which is like so funny. She'd totally do it. She'd be like, as long as you sit next to me, honey. I need a handsome, strong...
How fast does this go again?
I need a handsome, strong man to protect me.
That is absolutely what she would say.
Oh, I love her. Bless her heart. She's so cute.
That is those are the customer reviews of Zambezi Zinger at Worlds of Fun. Let's talk about the history. So let's get into our time machine here and pull down on the lap bar. And keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the time machine at all times. And let's go back to 1973. All right. As always, with our Worlds of Fun episodes, wanted to give a shout out to Jennifer over at worldsoffun.org. She has been going to the park for forever, and she's probably the #1 historian of Worlds of Fun.
That's really cool.
Everything. And so I actually realized, I'll touch on it later in the episode, but I've talked about in the past that we have family that knows her, but I've never actually met her. But it dawned on me while I was recording this episode that I think I've actually had a conversation with her at Ace Around the World.
Really?
About Zambezi Zinger. And so as I was going through this, I was like, I don't know why I've never seen a picture of Jennifer up until this episode, but I did. And I was like, oh, I've talked to her before. So Jennifer, if you're listening, I don't know if she
one day
is, who knows, but thank you for everything that you do for, keeping up on Worlds of Fun history. And
claps for Jennifer.
Yes, there was definitely some good information on worldsoffun.org. As all of our Worlds of Fun episodes, I have used her website for some of this information. So I just wanted to start out with that.
Maybe she can recommend the 80-year-old to go on the ride.
I don't know if she would. May 26, 1973, Worlds of Fun opens in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, we've talked about the park's history multiple times, so just a brief overview if this is your first time listening.
Okay.
It was opened as an opportunity to help Kansas City grow, especially increasing the tourism in the area. It was opened by Lamar Hunt, the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, and a few business partners in the area that, conceptualized and began construction of this brand new theme park. So eventually would be called Worlds of Fun. It's themed to Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days. Hence the hot air balloon as the logo, and like different areas of the park are themed to different countries and regions. So that's kind of the whole motif behind the theme of the park. The park would begin construction in 1971, and after 17 months of construction, park would open only a month behind schedule, just in time for Memorial Day weekend of 1973. On opening day, there were 3 roller coasters in operation. First of all, these names are awesome. There was Funicular.
What?
Which was an Alan Herschel kiddie coaster. Okay. And then there was Shush Boomer.
Okay.
Which was a Schwarzkopf Wildcat. But the headline attraction was Zambezi Zinger. So it was manufactured by Schwarzkopf. Here's a picture of the original Zambezi Zinger at the park. The model would be Schwarzkopf's second ever extended jumbo jet model. They also called it their speed racer model. They used it interchangeably. Now their jet models, you probably, if you're familiar with amusement parks, you've probably seen them. If you played Roller Coaster Tycoon, you're definitely familiar with them. They were designed to have inline or toboggan style seating. Think like Space Mountain at Disney World, where you're like sitting in one person per row.
Yep.
And so they started off with just single cars like this one. And it looks like I think you could seat up to 4 people in these original ones.
Okay.
They were likely inspired by Matterhorn bobsleds at Disneyland, which also has that style of seating. It's basically the same model as Space Mountain at Disney World. So this is their Jetstar 1 model. Their Jetstar 2 model was the same. It was 1 car, but it had up to 6 people. And then later they had their, what is this one called? I've lost it. Oh, their City Jet model, which then had 2 cars of 6 people. The other thing on these ones, this is going to freak you out. I know it's going to freak you out, but they don't have lap bars or restraints.
No.
Yeah. So
that's a death trap.
So you would sit. So it's like 2 at a time. So you'd have like the big person sits in the back, and then the smaller person sits in their lap. Kind of like Reptilian at King's Dominion was that way, but that one actually had a lap bar for you, and then basically like you were my lap bar, essentially, is how Reptilian worked. So I will say, so you don't freak out, nowadays any of these that you do go on do have restraints on them.
Thank goodness. They better.
This is the 70s. This is a much different time than we're in nowadays.
Too many shrooms, let me tell you.
Too many shrooms? I don't think that was the problem here.
You never know. It was the 70s.
That's a gross generalization of everyone in the 70s. So, yeah, no restraints on any of these, which is pretty crazy. So, but nowadays, any of the remaining Jetstar models, as far as I know, all have restraints on them nowadays. So the final model that they would introduce is their extended jumbo jet model, which is what Zambezi Zinger was. There were only 4 of these that were ever constructed, but while these smaller ones were kind of more attractive to traveling fairs or carnivals, the capacity wasn't good enough to attract big amusement parks, right? Mm-hmm. And so this model that finally, when they put 3 cars together, now you could have 18. You could have 18 passengers per train. That became a little bit more attractive to the bigger amusement parks. And so in 1971, Six Flags Over Texas opened Big Bend, which was the very first extended jumbo jet to operate. And then that takes us up to 1973, where we're at, and Zambezi Zinger opens as the second coaster of its kind. So because there's another Schwarzkopf coaster in the park on opening day, it's likely that they bought them both in a bundle. That would be my guess.
I could see that.
So I have no confirmation of that, but that would make sense in my mind. Mm-hmm. Here are the stats for the original Zambezi Zinger. 57 feet tall, 2,583 feet long, a 41 mile per hour top speed. Another thing about Zambezi Zinger that was iconic and synonymous with the ride itself was the spiral lift hill that it had. Now, this wasn't like exclusive to Zambezi Zinger, because all of these Schwarzkopf Jetstar models typically had the spiral lift hill, as you could see in this picture here.
Right.
I think this is the top of one here too. But the lift definitely became a landmark, specifically at Worlds of Fun, just because it was the headline attraction when the park opened. So
Right.
We do have some ride footage. This is from really early on. I don't know the year that this actual footage comes from, but it seems, based on what I'm looking at, it seems like it was in the 70s, which is pretty cool. There's no audio here, so I'm just going to kind of let this play for Haley while we discuss other things, but it's pretty cool stuff anyway. So
okay.
It actually, speaking of Jennifer from worldsofFun.org, this is footage that she posted. So
cool.
Yeah, so if you want to look at this, you can go to her YouTube channel. Her channel's Jennifer Lovesea Mast is the name of her channel. So it is 1973. So this is opening year of the park. And so I think some of the footage starts right. Oh, where was it? Here we go. Here's some original Zambezi Zinger footage here from 1973. So shot on 8mm film. It's pretty cool. So, and then I think there's some more later on here that's while they're. So I don't know if she shot this or if somebody else did, but this footage is like from the train, shooting some of Zambezi Zinger kind of more out in the woods here.
Huh. Very cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool footage. It's cool to see historical footage like this, because I mean, this is over 50 years old now, this footage, so it's pretty amazing. So looks like fun. Looks like a fun ride. So,
yes, I agree.
So there you go. There's some footage of the original Zambezi Zinger.
So,
Yeah, Haley would have never gotten on it, but
nope, I would not.
Now the spiral lift was designed as a way for saving space for portable coasters, because that's kind of Schwarzkopf, how they got into the amusement industry, was designing coasters that could be compact so that they could move in traveling fairs or at carnivals, and then some amusement parks would buy them. But that was kind of the amusement parks generally have enough space. They don't need to worry about, having a compact lift hill. But since that was what Schwarzkopf had designed for the model already, Worlds of Fun was, okay with that. And I think all the models that opened had the spiral lift hill. So,
right.
It's actually kind of interesting the way that the spiral lift hill works. I was doing a little reading on the engineering behind it, which is kind of a nerdy thing for me to do.
No,
but
it's very nerdy, but continue.
They can't use a chain because regular coaster lifts have a chain that goes all the way around and pulls the train, but because it's
spirally
spinning, there's not really a way to do that. So the way it works is the trains themselves actually had an electric motor in them, and they basically propelled themselves up the lift. But there was like an electric, I think, fin or something that would come into contact with something on the lift hill that would tell the motor to engage. So then when it got to the top of the lift, then it would disengage from that, sensor, and the motor would shut off, and then, it would go throughout the rest of the ride just using gravity. So, but it was the trains themselves that propelled up the lift hill. So they're pretty cool. So the coaster opened in the Africa section of the park, taking its name from, I don't know if you knew this, I did not. I knew it was an actual name of something, but it takes its name from the Zambezi River, which is the 4th longest river in Africa, apparently. So crosses through Zambia.
Sounds familiar.
It does sound familiar. And, when I was reading about that, I was like, I feel like I've heard that before. Yeah. But, if you had asked me where does Zambezi come from, I would have been like, I think it's named after something in Africa, but I can't tell you exactly. So crosses.
I think of Zimbabwe.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Looks like it goes a lot through the journey of Zimbabwe.
Yeah, so it goes through countries that have similar names, like it goes through Zambia and Zimbabwe,
Mozambique,
and so, but. Yeah, I don't know exactly where the terminology falls in, like if it's named after the places it goes through or something else. But It goes through Zambia, Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. So there you go. The coaster was famously a terrain coaster that kind of stayed close to the ground as it went through the trees. You kind of saw that in the video that we were just watching.
Zambezi means...
Oh, here we go.
Great river.
Oh, that's right on the nose a little bit.
River of fish.
Oh, interesting. There you go.
So it means great river in Tongan dialect, but from Bantu, which is African, is river of fish.
Interesting.
So there you go.
Well, there you go. Here's a quote from Jennifer over at worldsofun.org. She said, Zinger was well loved by its riders and its patrons. No trip to the park was complete without one, if not several rides. Guests loved it for a multitude of reasons. It was a great ride because of seating arrangements, no less, to ride with a child or a significant other. It was speedy and fast and dashed through the trees, providing a thrill, but offered a ride that could be ridden over and over again without becoming dull, making it a great ride for a first ride, just as easily as a great ride to ride over and over again. It was simply fun. So there you go.
Okay.
So as the years went on, Worlds of Fun continued to invest in new coasters and expand the park. We've talked about a lot of these before in other episodes, but in 1976, they would open Scream Roller, which was one of the very first looping coasters in the country. And then that same year, this is outside of Worlds of Fun, but that same year, both of Marriott's Great America parks would open their own, it's the same model as Zambezi Zinger, at each of their parks, and both of them would be called Whizzer. So, kind of a different name.
I like it, though.
This would be followed in 1980. Worlds of Fun would open Orient Express, a massive looping coaster that instantly became the park's headline attraction, and one we've talked about before. And then after that, the park would actually close 3 coasters in a row, with 2 of them being the other coasters that opened with Zambezi Zinger in 1973, the Schussboomer and Funicular.
Those ones, I have no idea where they even got that from.
Who knows? But and then Scream Roller would also close in 1988, I believe. So then finally, in 1989, the park would open Timberwolf, which kind of not as big as Orient Express. Orient Express is kind of still the headline attraction. But Zambezi Zinger still continued to be extremely popular throughout this time, mostly because it kind of served as the park's family coaster.
Right.
It was kind of like high-end, high-thrill family coaster.
Right.
So, because it's 41 miles per hour.
That's fast.
That's pretty good speed for a family coaster.
Right.
And so it kind of served as a gateway coaster to Timberwolf and to Orient Express and some of these bigger ones. Now, during this time, Schwarzkopf was struggling. The company had survived a 1983 bankruptcy, but were struggling to get work after the fact. And so aerodynamics had continued to get bigger and bigger. And I mean, 2 of these coasters that we just talked about are from aerodynamics. And Schwarzkopf is kind of falling behind some of the other manufacturers. Other manufacturers stepped in to build some of Schwarzkopf's own designs because they couldn't afford to build it, but they could, they designed the coaster, but they didn't have the means to actually build it. So other manufacturers kind of stepped in to build for them.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often for sure.
So doesn't sound something that happens often.
It's kind of a thing. It does happen occasionally where a coaster manufacturer may design a coaster, but then contract another manufacturer to actually make the pieces for them. It doesn't happen as often anymore, but it used to happen a lot when a coaster manufacturer had so much work that they couldn't keep up with it. So they may have a company in Europe that they would contract out to be you're our European manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
So we'll design the coasters, but you actually manufacture and assemble them for us in Europe, and we'll handle it over here in the States.
Okay.
So it does happen occasionally, but by 1995, Schwarzkopf was no more. And partially, part of that was because the founder of the company, Anton Schwarzkopf, was kind of getting sick as well, and I think he passed away in 97, if I remember correctly. So
what a shame.
The company was just kind of on the way out anyway. So,
right.
So, but after years of Schwarzkopf not really functioning at full capacity, because like I said, they had a bankruptcy in 1983, parts for Zambezi Zinger continued to get more sparse and more expensive. Now, that's not to say that it was impossible to get parts, because generally speaking, when one coaster manufacturer goes out of business, another manufacturer will step in to start making parts for their coasters.
Right.
So like nowadays, if a park has a Schwarzkopf coaster that they're trying to keep operational, they'll buy their replacement parts from Maurer, who is the one that basically stepped in to start making replacement parts for Schwarzkopf coasters.
Okay.
So that's why you can still see, these coasters operational and still, getting new parts for their trains and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
that would make sense.
Yeah. So some other manufacturer sees a gap in, somewhere where they can make money, and they'll step in to fill that space, so.
Right.
But Big Bend at Six Flags Over Texas had closed in 1979 and was scrapped. Whizzer at California's Great America had also met a similar fate. So at this point, it was just Zambezi Zinger and then Whizzer at Six Flags Great America that were still operational. And then sometime during the 1997 season, park officials had decided that the ride had reached the end of its service life. Now, this is pretty soon after Cedar Fair bought the park. So it does make me wonder if that was a Cedar Fair decision or if it was a Worlds of Fun decision. So it seems kind of odd for, Cedar Fair to just step in and start closing rides. But, I mean, stranger things have happened, and Cedar Fair closed a whole park that they bought before. So you never know. But I just noticed the timeline on that. I was like, that's not that long after Cedar Fair bought the park. But anyway. So, after 24 seasons of operation, Zambezi Zinger would give its last rides at Worlds of Fun at the end of the 1997 season. The ride was actually not scrapped, but was sold to a ride broker. We'll talk about that more later, though.
That sounds like something you would do. You would be a ride broker.
Ride broker, yeah.
It's perfect.
Guests were pretty upset about the loss of Zambezi Zinger. I mean, by this point, so where are we? 1997. So the coaster had been there for, I said it already, 24 years. So, I mean, it's been there since the opening of the park. So there's people that have been riding it, since, if they were 5 years old when it opened, and now they're, in their late 20s. And, it's very sad for people to see this coaster that they have so many memories with to get torn out. So the park knew they needed to do something big to respond. And so they would open Mamba in 1998, which was a massive hypercoaster that continues to operate at the park to this day. So very good ride. So now we're going to time travel. Okay. We're in 1998. We're going to
time traveling again. We gotta get
we gotta get back in the time machine.
Get with it, Nathan. Come on. I'm waiting.
It's a lot of
have to jump into the time machine.
It's a lot of work to edit the time machine in there.
We'll just pretend.
So we're traveling forward in time 25 years.
Does that mean it's a different time machine?
I don't know, dude. That'd be complicated if you had to have a forward and a backwards time machine. Because then you'd have to bring the forwards one with you when you went backwards so that you could use the forwards one to get back to where you came from. Back to the future. So we're going to jump 25 years all the way to 2022. So pretty recent. So by this time, Worlds of Fun had sort of developed a reputation as a neglected Cedar Fair park. So after Zambezi Zinger closed, they had to close Orient Express 6 years later. You can listen to episode 53 if you want to hear about that story. And then the park would open 3 coasters between 2004 and 2009 to kind of help for the loss of Zambezi Zinger and Orient Express. So they opened Spinning Dragons in 2004, Patriot in 2006, and then Prowler in 2009. But then the new coaster stopped, and it's not really known why. I mean, clearly when you look at like the balance sheets for Cedar Fair, like Worlds of Fun isn't breaking records, not like, Cedar Fair or Kings Island or Carowinds. It's not one of their bigger parks, but it's not one of their smaller parks. You know, it kind of fits in the middle there.
It's like Silver Dollar City size. I would
maybe a little smaller, maybe
yeah.
a little smaller, but it's in that realm for sure.
Right.
And so, you know, and they have other parks in that space. You know, they got Dorney Park that's probably similar. Valley Fair's probably a little smaller. You know, they've got other stuff that's kind of in there. But they hadn't gotten a big investment in a long time. But here we are in 2022. It's been 13 years since they've opened a new coaster. And there had been rumors that Worlds of Fun was going to finally be getting something new because the park was celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2023.
Right.
So it made sense for them to finally get, you know, a significant investment. On July 26th, 2022, the park posted its first teaser that something big was indeed coming for 2023. So this is some of what they posted. Let's see. The post said, after almost 50 years, we're getting ready for exciting new adventures. And then the date was August 11th, which is actually, you can see it on the suitcase as well.
I was going to say,
arrival 11th August 22. So, and then the suitcase had it's got all these different stickers on it. I'm just looking at it now. There's nothing really on here that hints to what was coming.
Right.
It's because they've got the different areas of the park, like East Asia, Scandinavia.
Right.
There's actually 2 Scandinavia stickers on here. African Safari, Europe, Americana. You know, it's really the whole park. And then there's a fun little Orient Express sticker on there, which is kind of fun too. But nothing to really say, oh, we know exactly what this means. Like, it was very, you know, subtle in what they were posting. So, but regardless, people were pretty excited, obviously seemingly hinting at a new coaster coming for the 50th anniversary.
Right.
So they continue to post these teasers throughout the next several weeks. With the suitcase appeared in all of them. It was kind of their focus for their marketing campaign, I think. So then on August 11th, 2022, Worlds of Fun announced that a legend was coming back. A brand new reimagined Zambezi Zinger would be returning to the park in 2023. Now, let's see. I've got the official announcement video here that we can watch. So we'll see if last week I tried to play a video and there was no sound. So we'll see what happens this week. So, we got sound.
Yay.
Got sound this week. Good. So it says, coming in 2023, Zambezi Zinger. So I think from this point on, it doesn't share a whole lot other than just kind of showing the actual coaster. A little bit of a POV view. So I was just kind of alternating between off-ride views of the coaster and POV videos of the coaster. It's a fun little announcement video. Very simple, but gets the point across for sure. So I'm just waiting to see if there's something here at the end of the video. Zambezi Zinger. Nope, that was it. Just says Zambezi Zinger. Okay.
No date or anything.
Yep. So just coming in 2023, Zambezi Zinger. That's all you get. So back to I got some images here of the actual. There we go. There's the renderings that they posted with it. So,
okay.
So Zambezi Zinger's coming back. Now, there would be similarities in some ways, but it would be very different in other ways. For starters, the new Zambezi, so we'll start similarities first. The new Zambezi Zinger would be constructed on the same plot of land as the original, and actually utilizes the exact same queue building. So here's a picture of the queue building from
I didn't know that.
Later on or early on.
That's
with
cool.
Zambezi Zinger, and then nowadays it's the exact same queue building that's used. So yeah, isn't that cool?
That is cool.
So now,
excuse me.
Oh, am I boring you?
Yep. How'd you guess? No, just kidding.
Really, it's just late. We recorded these at night after watching 2 toddlers all day.
And we did Easter baskets today, and
very busy.
Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy day. Anyways, continuing.
Now, part of the plot of land that the original was on is taken up by Boomerang, which is right next to it. So it's not And the layout's completely different. It's not, but it is close enough that they could use the same queue building, new station, but same queue building, which is cool. So it would also feature a spiral lift hill, just as the original had. They incorporated a tunnel into the new version, which I didn't mention earlier, but there was a tunnel on the original one as well. And that's pretty much where the similarities end, though, because for starters, the new version is a wooden coaster constructed by GCI, rather than the original being a steel coaster. So GCI was the same company that constructed Prowler in 2009 and reprofiled Timberwolf just a few years prior. So GCI and Worlds of Fun have done a lot of work together in the past 20 years. And so they have a good relationship with them. So I'm sure that played into this partly. This would also be GCI's first coaster to feature their new Infinity Flyer trains, which were capable of tighter turns than the current model of Millennium Flyer trains. So now, why wood instead of steel? And that's a question that I think a lot of people have had ever since this announcement happened. I know I probably asked it. Like, why?
No, you did. I remember you asking that.
Well, and I was like, they already have a GCI wooden coaster there. Why do they need another one? Right. I was like, it doesn't make sense. So when they were talking to manufacturers, the park officials' number one requirement was that the coaster had to have a spiral lift. Like, that's the number one way you're going to get this to be a true, like, callback to the original, is by having a spiral lift hill. So, yes, it's on the same plot of land and uses the same queue building, but, like, having a spiral lift is, like, a really good way of calling back to the original. And from the beginning, like, there really was no debate on where they wanted to put this new coaster. I guess they knew from the beginning that it was going to be Zambezi Zinger 2, essentially.
Right.
Now, the question was just, what's the layout going to be? Who's going to build it? But the fact that it was going to be Zambezi Zinger was like the first thing they decided on, which is kind of interesting. So from interviews that I've read, apparently they had good discussions with Gerstlauer about the project, which is partially, that's something I discussed with Jennifer when I apparently met her and didn't know that I met her at one of these ACE events. But she was the one that mentioned that Gerstlauer was not confident that they could make the spiral lift work. And so they decided not to move forward with Gerstlauer. And so in the end, GCI was the one that was like, yeah, we can make this spiral lift hill work. So, but apparently GCI offered to do Zambezi Zinger as an all-steel coaster, even offered to do a single rail model, which is something I didn't even know GCI offered, because they've never done that before. But Worlds of Fun ultimately went with the wooden option for aesthetic purposes, which I don't get, because you could just as easily make this a steel coaster and then put the wooden structure on it. So I don't quite understand the reasoning there, because again, they already have a GCI wooden coaster there.
Steel in the worst
I am not convinced that someday it won't be, because it's already
that, like, RMC would come in.
No, I think GCI would come in and put their steel track on there. So, because they're already doing some of that for Prowler this year, and even parts of this, like this turn around the lift hill, is already steel. The lift hill is steel.
Right.
So,
and I knew that.
Yeah. So
it's the rest of the ride that it's
and right now it's manageable, but 10, 15 years from now, absolutely not. So,
or like 2 or 3 years from now. Sorry.
So it's
I guess I'm jumping the gun on talking about my feelings about.
They kind of probably gathered a little bit while we're talking about customer reviews, but
it's just bumpy.
It is quite bumpy.
It's a rough ride.
Yeah, but so I'm not convinced that one day it won't be a completely steel coaster, but we'll see. So that's ultimately why they went with the wood. So there you go. So when GCI designed the layout, they wanted to remove as few trees as possible. So that also, kind of creates this, in and out of the trees feel for the ride.
Right.
There's also a creek in the area that came into play. Apparently, this is weird. When they built Prowler in 2009, the original layout for Prowler was supposed to go across this creek, but they apparently discovered endangered salamanders in that area. Oh. So they had to reconfigure the layout so they didn't disturb the salamanders.
All right.
That is just such a random fact. Random. I know, right? Like, oh, endangered salamanders. Okay.
Don't disturb the salamanders.
Not the salamanders.
In all honesty, it's kind of cool.
It is cool,
why
but like,
all the places?
It's really funny. So when they were designing Zambezi Zinger, they decided, we're not going to try to cross the creek. We don't want to deal with that like we had to last time, right?
Right.
And apparently, during construction, they discovered an endangered species of bat.
What?
During the creek, like near the creek during Zambezi Zinger's construction. So that turned out to be a correct decision. I don't know what it is about this creek and endangered species, but
there's something in the water.
I know.
There. Goodness.
It's keeping the endangered species alive, apparently.
That's insane.
It's a weird coincidence for sure. The tunnel was decided on really late in the design process, to the point that if you actually look on this rendering here, it's actually not on this rendering. So they decided on the tunnel after they had already finished the announcement video, because it's actually on the ride. It's this turn right here is where the tunnel is. So it's just funny that they had already, put together all the images and everything, and then at some point after that,
exciting enough.
What should we do about it? They decided to add a tunnel. So,
a tunnel.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Add some darkness.
Yeah. Construction began shortly after the announcement. Here's some construction videos, or construction photos from Worlds of Fun. They were pretty involved in the, posting the construction process throughout it. There was a blog that you could keep up to date on everything. And so here's the construction of the tunnel that we were just talking about, actually. So
secret tunnel.
They purposely made the tunnel as small as they physically could.
That's
and
crazy.
Still be safe. And it really is it looks very small in this picture. It's pretty crazy. So
that makes me feel uneasy riding it even more so.
Well, they the way they design it, they make sure that even the longest person could put their hands out and they wouldn't be able to touch anything.
But still, it's kind of crazy to see how little it is.
Yeah. So from the beginning, GCI knew the spiral lift was going to be the most difficult part of the project. They had decided the way they were going to make it work was they were going to use a drive tire system to pull the train to the top of the lift. So the lift features over 120 motorized tires that come into contact. So basically there's fins on the bottom of the train that go vertical like this, and then the tires sit on either side and kind of push the train forward like that. So that's the way they decided they wanted to make the spiral lift work. So this is the first time they've ever done this. It's the first time a spiral lift had ever been installed on a wooden coaster before. So it's quite a unique undertaking for them. Construction continued without any major issues throughout the end of 2022 and into 2023. Spiral Lift Hill was not topped off until April 7th, 2023, and they still had to install the drive tires. So, this is pretty late in the process, if they're going to get this open by Memorial Day weekend. You're not topping off the coaster until early April. But the park felt confident they could still open on time. So in March, the park announced that they were auctioning off first rides for charity. And we've talked, a lot of parks do this nowadays.
They do. Yep.
So the proceeds were going to Big Slick to benefit Mercy Children's Hospital. The park announced that Zambezi Zinger would open to the public on May 26, 2023, Memorial Day weekend. So exactly what they want, right? You want to get it open before your first big weekend, right? This is where I kind of come into the story, actually, because I had planned to be there Memorial Day weekend with Ace as part of their Ace Around the Worlds event.
Right.
And it was going to be my first time covering the opening of a new coaster, because it was kind of early on. It was like the first new roller coaster to open close enough to us after I kind of got into the coaster enthusiast hobby.
Right.
And so it was like my first time to like go check out a new coaster before other people really get a chance. Like it was a big deal. And I know a lot of people had kind of been watching to be like, Zambezi Zinger going to open. And they had told Ace, like, yeah, we'll have it open on time. It was still part of the schedule. So I'm keeping a close eye on this throughout this whole process, because I'm like, they just topped this thing off in early April. Like, this is cutting it close.
Right.
So, yeah. The trains arrived at the park in early May and began testing the next day. So trains are on track early May, so that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
May 18th, the park posts a POV of Zambezi Zinger with the tagline, "Is it next week yet?" So clearly, May 18th, they're still planning on opening this.
I remember all of this. Continue.
Haley was quite involved in this whole process for sure. May 24th, 2 days before the ride is supposed to open, the park announces that the opening of the ride has been delayed until further notice. This was the update that they posted. Zambezi Zinger is almost ready to go. We just need some more time to get everything ready. Our teams are working through final testing on the new Steelwood hybrid coaster. We look forward to announcing the new opening date soon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. Just...
Here we go again.
I'm not going to get into the weeds on this, because everything that has been, needed to be said has been said on social media, but is a big deal. And a lot of people were very upset by this. Like, it's one thing to do it like 2 weeks before the ride opens. It's a whole other thing to do it 2 days before the ride opens. Like, people
have bought plane tickets.
Not only have people already bought plane tickets, they might be on the plane already. They might be on their way to the park.
Right.
And now they're going to get there, and your new ride's not going to open, and you're making them come back on a whole separate trip just to ride the coaster. Like, that is a problem.
Yeah.
That is a big problem.
Yeah, it was.
So, and they're paid for hotels, and also, you'll notice in here, no apology. No sorry, no we apologize. Just, we promise it will...
Honey,
we promise it will be worth the wait. Great,
you
thanks.
You weren't going to get into the weeds. Let's move on, okay? Shh, it's okay. It's okay. It's in the past. It's in the past. Can maybe quote Rafiki. Oh, yes, the past can hurt. But the way I see it, they can learn from it, or they can run from it, or learn from it.
Well, they hopefully learn from it.
There you go. Okay, now we're moving on.
In reality, it's I'm fine now. It's just the fact that there are so many procedures as an amusement park that seem to make total sense. Mm-hmm. And like, to just delay this announcement and hope you can get it ready. They just waited too long to realize the hole that they had put themselves in, essentially. So, yeah, just a big oversight, and it caused a lot of uproar on social media. After a couple weeks with no update, people began seeing riders on Zambezi Zinger on June 10th. Now, this was a problem because the raffle winners for the first rider experience were supposed to be able to ride it on the 16th. Mm. So now, this is a whole other thing I didn't even know happened at the time. I read about this when I was doing the research for this episode.
I didn't know that this happened
But,
either.
there were 32 people that won the raffle for one of those 32 seats on the inaugural ride, and now random guests at the park were getting on it before them.
I would have been mad if that happened.
Yeah, that's how I found out about this. There were news articles that were posted in, local newspapers about the issue, and,
Yikes.
a spokesperson from the park said that the ride is not officially open, but rides may be given from time to time. Then the people you auction it off to are not getting first rides. The people that you put on it before them are.
That's sketchy. Yeah.
What this really speaks to me, like the whole debacle that happened with Zambezi Zinger when it opened, what it says to me is the park hadn't opened a new roller coaster in so long, they forgot how to do it. Which is crazy to say, but it's really what it feels like. It feels like the new leadership at the park, probably, because, 14 years, you have people that move on to other jobs and other things. I don't know if the park manager was there when they opened Prowler. I don't know, ride operations manager, all these people. None of them may have ever opened a new roller coaster before.
That's very true.
It's fair. So I know that when we went to Ace Around the World that first time, during that weekend that it was supposed to be open, because we did still go, me and my sister. Haley was pregnant, so she didn't go that first time. But me and my sister went, and we were supposed to get a behind-the-scenes tour, and we didn't get that either. And I found out later, I was upset about it at the time, but I found out later it was because the park had no idea how to do it with that many people, because they had never had that many people come to a coaster enthusiast event before. Like, the park was just totally, surprised by how big this became for them, I think. And so it's just kind of...
That's insane. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. I found that out later. I don't remember when I found that out, but I was like, whoa. Well, at least that makes sense why it happened. But then when Haley and I went, we did actually get a behind-the-scenes tour, probably because they knew what to expect that time.
Yeah.
So just crazy stuff that happened those first few months as the ride is trying to open. So, finally, on June 19th, 2023, Zambezi Zinger opened to the public and continues to operate to this day. The ride experience is as follows. Riders disembark and go down a small dip to the left before entering the spiral lift. After cresting the top of the lift hill, the train drops 74 feet, hitting the top speed of 45 miles per hour. The track banks to the left at the bottom of the drop and then ascends into a large sweeping turn to the right. The track descends back to ground level before a sideways airtime moment over the bottom of the first drop, and then a long right-hand turn around the spiral lift. The trains drop back down to ground level and bank to the left before going over a small airtime hill, and then into a quick S-bend to the right and then to the left. The train dives to the right and into the tunnel for a couple seconds, straightening out as riders exit the tunnel. Another bank turn to the left is followed by another airtime hill before a large bank turn to the right. The final section features several snappy turns to the left and to the right before the train hits the final brakes. Now, another thing that I forgot about this too. There's another issue they ran into during this whole process. When the coaster was announced, it was given a 40-inch height requirement, which pretty, that's like family coaster.
Right.
I don't know exactly. I'm trying to think 40 inches. I think Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City is 39. To put that in perspective, right? So not that far off from Fire in the Hole.
Could that be like Parker size?
Yeah, 40 inches. Our 5-year-old is probably tall enough to get. It's probably 40 inches. Can you imagine putting him on that ride?
No.
Well, that's exactly what Worlds of Fun and GCI discovered as well. What they initially thought would ride like a high thrill family coaster ended up being way more intense than I think anybody anticipated. And before opening, the height limit was increased to 48 inches. And likewise, the thrill level was set to 5 out of 5. Prowler is 4 out of 5 by comparison. So,
yeah.
I mean, your number one coaster in the park, Prowler, is now, you're saying this coaster is more intense than that one is. And to be fair,
it is.
It is,
yeah.
Which is crazy to say because it's only 74 feet tall. But man, it's really...
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, it's really just how tight the turns are, which was part of the design of having, the new Infinity Flyer trains. GCI knew that these trains were capable of tighter turns than their older model. But I don't know if they're just models were incorrect or if they didn't realize how intense those turns were going to be, even though you're only going 40 to 30 miles an hour. But, you make the turns small enough, it doesn't matter how fast you're going. Yeah. It's crazy intense. So it's crazy. Like, this, what was supposed to be a family coaster is now, probably one of the more intense coasters in the park.
So. Yeah, and it's true. I mean, I only rode it like twice, and I was like, it's too much for me.
Yeah. So it's, we can probably talk about now that we're talking about ride experience, we can probably talk about our experience riding it. You've kind of gathered it by this point, but I think Haley dislikes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably more dislikes it than likes it. I'm in the camp of like, I enjoy it, but I see the potential of how it could be so much better than it actually is.
Yeah.
Specifically, so you go down that first drop and then you come up and over the big sweeping turn to the right. And then there's that little sideways airtime hill. And then you come around the outside of the lift hill. And that section right there is their Steel Titan track. Now, the reason they did I don't know if I just forgot to put it in the script, but the reason the lift hill and that section are steel is because they wanted it to be more open so that people could actually see people on the spiral lift. Because if it was wood, it would be kind of just, covered, you wouldn't be able to see it very well. So that's why that section in particular is steel track. But that turn around the lift hill is so glossy smooth that it's almost jarring when you come off of the steel and back onto the wood, that you're like, oh my gosh, like, just you realize how rough the wooden section of the ride really is. So and the layout is fantastic. I have no issues with the layout.
Yeah, agreed.
It's just the wood. It's so much rougher than I would have thought a brand new coaster to be. Even a wood coaster.
Like when I got on it, I felt like it was a 20-year-old coaster.
It's crazy. It's rougher than Prowler is, and Prowler's 15 years old at this point. So it's I don't know why that happened. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if it's the new trains. I don't know if different type of wood. I don't know. I don't know why it's so bumpy. But like I said earlier, if I would not be surprised if they eventually change it to all steel track. If they do, I think it might be my favorite coaster in the park. Like, I love the layout and I see the potential. It's just too rough to enjoy it.
Yes.
And so if it was all steel, I think it could be so much better. But who knows when and if that will ever happen. Hopefully it does.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our experience. It obviously has a soft spot in my heart because it's like one of the only coasters I've actually gotten up close with and gotten to do like behind the scenes stuff with.
You got to touch it.
Did I?
No,
I don't think I was gonna say I don't think we did. But yeah, but it's very rough. So the potential is there for sure, but hopefully it'll get better. So yeah. And I think that's kind of the consensus among people, as you saw in the customer reviews, 3.7 out of 5 is not great. It really just comes down to if you can handle the roughness or not, if you can. And that's the thing. Like when we did the ERT, I still rode it, I think 6 times in a row because I still enjoy it.
Yeah, you rode a lot. And
I was like,
I was playing on my phone waiting for you to be done.
Yep. I was just like front row, back row, try the middle. I was going on it over and over again. So I still enjoy it, but it's more just like, it could be so much better.
Right.
So that's really where I stand on it. So there's been little change to the ride since. It still has operational issues, throughout its opening year, and last year it continued to have some issues. So now there's one last thing, I guess 2 more things to talk about here. One last thing that Haley probably doesn't even know what happened, unless I may have mentioned it in passing to you. I'm not sure now. But Worlds of Fun announced a little over a month ago that Zambezi Zinger's lift hill would be fully enclosed. And
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that. I didn't know if I had told you that or not. So their reasoning was that it would be to enhance the ride experience, but also, and likely the real only reason, they're trying to say it enhances the ride experience, but really the real reason is to increase operational efficiency. And they specifically call that out, which to me says that weather is becoming an impact on the lift hill and why it keeps breaking down so much. Now, I have heard that rain and moisture has been their number one problem, and so that would check out if they're trying to enclose it just to keep rain and moisture off of the lift hill. So,
okay,
but yeah, you're ready to. I've got a picture. They've completed it already.
What?
That's what it looks like now.
That's actually crazy.
Isn't that wild?
It looks completely different.
It's crazy. Well, and the funny thing to me, first of all, that looks, it's going to be so hot in there. It's because it's just aluminum siding. This is what it looks like. You know, they just basically made a square tunnel around the lift that's aluminum siding.
System in there.
It looks like it's going to be so hot in there in the summer.
Could you imagine getting stuck on the lift hill in the summertime?
Hopefully they're putting some kind of ventilation or air conditioning in there or something, because that looks so hot. But anyway, so that's number one, first of all. Second of all, the whole reason they made the track steel on that section was so that people could see the trains on the lift hill, and now they've enclosed it.
They cannot make up their mind on this ride. Oh my goodness.
I just think the ride has had so many problems that they've been forced to do things that they didn't really plan on doing, you know. The original was not enclosed, so clearly this isn't something like, oh, is it, an homage to the original? Like, no, this is like,
no, it's not.
They've been left with no other choice but to do this to make the ride operational, which is crazy. Oh, man, this ride has been a real headache for the park, which is sad when you don't get that many new coasters, and then your new coasters just had this many problems. But yeah, it's quite interesting. So that's where we're at today with Zambezi Zinger. But we have one more thing to talk about.
Okay.
Because remember, very early on in the episode, I said that the original Zambezi Zinger had been sold to a ride broker. Well, after they sold it to a ride broker, the broker actually managed to sell the coaster to a man in Colombia who was opening a brand new theme park called Parque del Café, which is Coffee Park, which... in Colombia, I mean, their number one export is coffee beans. So it kind of makes sense. So Coffee Park. And there, the new Zambezi Zinger would open as Montaña Rusa and continues to operate to this day.
No way.
So this is the original Zambezi Zinger, but now opened as a Montaña Rusa in Colombia.
That's insane.
So you can, if you're feeling adventurous and want to go down to Colombia, you can still ride the original Zambezi Zinger, which is pretty cool. So
pretty stinking cool.
Actually, I've seen, going back to Jennifer at worldsoffun.org, she brought her up a lot this episode, but I saw a video of her. She went on a trip down to Colombia to ride the original Zambezi Zinger, which I was like, that's pretty cool.
That's so special.
Fun little trip to go ride a piece of history down there. So I wanted so bad I tried to find this coaster in the CoasterBot rankings.
Yeah.
And I guess no one that does CoasterBot has actually been on it because it's not in the CoasterBot rankings.
Oh,
I was like, because I wanted to see which one was higher, if the original or the new one was higher in the rankings. But unfortunately, no one in the CoasterBot rankings put this in their ranks, I guess, because it wasn't on there. So
that's a bummer.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you've been on Montaña Rusa, you need to go vote in the CoasterBot rankings next year so that we can see what your opinion is on if the new or the old Zambezi Zinger is better.
Jennifer to do it.
There you go. She'd have an opinion, I'm sure. If I had to guess, she'd probably pick this one. That would be my guess.
Yeah,
I would guess she'd pick the old one. So.
I probably would too, just looking at it.
Probably. So looks nice with the fresh paint that they've got on it and everything.
Really nice.
So it's looking good. So, well, despite the many issues that have occurred
Did they
over
add a lap bar though?
Oh, I have no idea. It's hard to. I can't tell in this picture. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. So
I would be surprised if they didn't have a lap bar.
It's twofold because it's like, yes, modern coasters tend to have that more than older coasters did, but also I don't know Colombian law how that works. Like, they may require all coasters have to have it, and so they had to, but I don't know for sure. So, I guess one other thing I'll mention here that I didn't put in the script, but I just remembered. You can still ride one of these Schwarzkopf jumbo jet coasters. The only one left operating in the country is now Whizzer at Six Flags Great America, which I have not been on because we haven't been to that park yet, but is definitely a bucket list coaster. And actually, that coaster was scheduled to close. I don't remember how long ago it was. Sometime in the last 10 years, I think it was scheduled to be closed. And they had so many people petition to keep it that they actually changed their mind and kept it open.
Insane.
Which
doesn't happen.
That like barely ever happens. So that tells you how many people love Whizzer over at Six Flags Great America.
That's
so
cool.
That's a
I like that.
success story for the coaster enthusiasts there in Chicago.
We win.
So, well, despite the many issues that have occurred over its short lifetime, Zambezi Zinger is a nostalgic tribute to a legendary Worlds of Fun attraction. And to be fair, has breathed some new life into a park that hasn't seen a large-scale investment in almost 15 years. So hopefully that momentum can lead to more coasters and investments in the park in the near future. And that is the history of Zambezi Zinger at Worlds of Fun.
Very nice. That was a fun episode.
It was a fun episode, yeah. It's fun little story, and a story that both of us kind of had some personal experience with the story, which doesn't happen very often. It's also, it's always a good episode when it's a coaster that both Haley and I have both been able to ride. So, but yeah. Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast. And if it was your first time, hope you enjoyed and hope you continue to tune in the future. If you haven't, be sure to give us a 5-star rating here on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you may be listening. It's not for our egos. It's not to, inflate our heads.
It's a little bit.
Maybe for Haley's sake. But it's really more just so that people can find the podcast in the future. It helps improve our SEO and makes it easier for people to find us. So,
what's SEO?
Search engine optimization. So, yeah, I guess I work in...
Yeah.
I work in e-commerce and retail, so that's a phrase I'm familiar with.
Yeah,
but
English. That's not English.
Basically makes it easier for people to find you when they search for roller coaster podcasts.
That's English.
So, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so over on Twitter or X. Also on Instagram, our handle on both of those is @airtimetraveler. And yeah, I think that's about it. Be sure to tune in a couple weeks for, I think, if I remember correctly, our next episode. We are going to Kings Island / Kings Dominion.
Ooh,
so
interesting.
you might figure out what that means.
So. I bet they can figure it out.
Probably based on other episodes we've done, but We'll see. Thank you for tuning into this episode, and we will see you in the next one.